Welcome to Film Study Podcast with Lexi. I'm Lexi. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, all of that good stuff. Rate the podcast if you like. Listen to it on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to your podcast. I am happy because I actually have my blood family on this podcast today. I have my cousin Jared. You'll remember him from way back when. I think it was season 3. Was it season 3?
It might have been. I don't remember it.
I think it was like early season 3, something like that. But anyway, my cousin Jared is back on the podcast, and we're here to talk episode 612, Draft Day. So hope that you enjoy it. Here it is. All right, so letter grade A, B, C, D, E, F. What would you grade this episode and why? Briefly.
Like a B minus.
A B minus?
It's just because, like, I do a lot of stuff for the NFL draft, like the actual real life one, and just like how the draft thing went is the reason I gave it a B minus. I really like the Jordan storyline about the marriage and everything, but we'll get into that.
That's hilarious. I feel like I should improve my grade, but no, this is probably potentially the worst grade that I've given an episode this season. I'm gonna give it like a C minus. Let me be fair. I'm gonna give it a C minus. A C minus. And there were like just things that I just felt like this episode was a little off than what we've gotten, and I feel like people were acting slightly out of character. Obviously we'll talk about the draft and how that went for Spencer, but even like stuff with the wedding and picking the best man, I was just like, oh, this is sort of, I don't know if I'm loving this. So C minus. I think like if I were to grade it on a curve for the Layla and Olivia sisterhood, it would be given like an A, right?
They've been friends. They had their off and on moments, but they've been friends literally since what they said, kindergarten.
Yeah. So it's I was actually gonna say graded on a curve and give it a B, but I'm like, who am I? I'm giving it an A. They're my favorite part of the show. So anyway, but no, it's the episode is like a solid C minus ish. We'll see if I change my grade the higher as we get into it. But let's talk about Asher first. So the first time we get Asher is actually as he's basically trying to meet up with his new coach because Montez has moved on to coach in the NFL. And he's talking to Jabari, and Jabari says this line. He's like, who would have thought that a white man from Beverly would remind me of home, because Asher lives in Crenshaw. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. But they talk about this new coach, Coach Edison. And basically just Coach Edison hasn't been the most welcoming to Asher. Especially not like Coach Montez, who, very, very much looked out for him, made up positions for him. And so like his whole journey throughout this story is trying to impress, I'd say, Coach Edison. So he talks about it with Jamie. Jamie's really upset on his behalf. It's really funny because she says some things that like made me pause as well, but she's upset for him on his behalf. He talks to Jordan about it, and Jordan's like, you're a great coach and all of that good stuff. He, basically tries to impress him again, and he creates this like list on like the different players on the team to show that he's indispensable and show that he's valuable, much like when he had to do the scouting report for Montez the last time. And Edison throws his book in the trash, and by the end of it, he just decides that he doesn't want to coach at Coastal California anymore, and he calls up the other Coach Montez and decides to coach at Beverly, which she is more than willing to take him on. Which I thought it was also interesting, because I'm like, is Montez Mr. Montez coaching in California the way that they're still in California, or what's going on with that? But what did you think of this storyline?
I didn't like this one per se, because Asher did all the right things, and the things he did for the school, like he even though he wasn't on the team playing, he still came into the national title game and caught a touchdown, and y'all just got rid of him just so easy. I wasn't a fan of that aspect because he did a lot for the team. He put his body on the line, even though he shouldn't be playing football anymore. And just to get rid of him like that quickly without a second thought was not my favorite thing.
Well, he left, didn't he? So he did technically get rid of him.
You could have still gave him a chance, but he didn't.
That's true.
He didn't
Listen,
get
I'm
a chance.
with you. I think as a coach, I'm not gonna relitigate how I felt about Asher having not played football in 3 years and suddenly being back on the
Yeah,
field. But yeah, I think, as a coach, I thought that scouting report I think that he showed initiative, and that's something that I feel like most coaches really value. So it felt like the fact that maybe the coach didn't even look at the book
yeah.
was crazy. But I think him calling up the other Montez made a lot of sense
No,
at the
that
end of
part
the
it
day
did.
because she
Like,
was
she was
also,
she
yeah,
always wanted to help Asher, even when her first
yeah,
time there. She said, "Always look
exactly.
beyond the field and just saying, what did you see here? What did you see there?" When he first
Hmm.
started, when he was still in high school. So
So he's definitely keeping it in the family, and considering, I think, all of his angles, and considering the fact that she'll be a little bit more flexible with his schedule, and that he
mhm.
has a kid, and then he also has school and all of that stuff. The one thing that I didn't like about, well, not even the one thing, but one thing that stood out to me about this storyline that I just, again, gave me pause, was the fact that, why did Jamie say that she wasn't a fan of Asher when they first met? That is not true.
Yeah, it just
I was just like, ma'am, you literally volunteered yourself to be sort of an excuse for him for the prom thing, and then you all kissed that same night. So that's false. That's
yeah,
false.
that's it.
Uh so, and again, I think that there were little things throughout this episode that I was just like, okay. Okay, sure. If that's what we want to go with. Um but yeah, I was very happy that Asher got to, you know, again reconnect with other Coach Montez, and I actually hope that we see her now that she came in that last second for the episode. I don't know if they'll bring her back, but it would be cool. Is just, I think
Just
it feels like they're wrapping up his storyline a little bit, so
yeah,
it would be cool for us to see her and him actually coaching and see the Beverly Eagles, because we don't get to see them often. Like, we're always back at South Crenshaw High, but we don't get to see Beverly Hills High that often. So I hope that we see it one more time as Asher is coaching on the field, because that would be fun. Um, let's go. We're gonna go into Jordan. We're gonna go into Jordan. Liv sort of made herself the maid of honor for Layla.
it only makes sense.
It does, and we're gonna get back to it. It does only make sense, and we're gonna get back to it. But because Liv has now made herself the maid of honor, even though they had agreed that they weren't gonna do the whole bridal party thing, Jordan now has to find a best man. And so I think he was like going between Spencer and Asher this whole episode, and he goes to talk to Spencer as Spencer is at this like NFL draft. What was it, like a fan event?
Fan signing event, signing autographs.
Yeah, a fan signing event. And he's just like, oh, make it out to the best QB. And did he say, oh, yeah, is Wade Waters here?
Yeah,
Or something like that. Like, that was really funny because it was a callback to their beef in season 4. But he like randomly starts to talk to Spencer about the fact that he doesn't know like what's coming up next, because Spencer brings up whether he and Layla are going to be moving into the beach house. And so he's just like, oh yeah, I haven't really thought about the day after the wedding, or whatever the case may be. And then Jordan like just goes the whole day with sort of talking to both Spencer and Asher about the things that he hadn't thought about apparently with Layla, which is, i.e., like moving in, i.e., kids, and like all of that stuff. And he's just like, oh, I've never really thought about it. And then finally, like, he and Asher have this heart to heart, where Asher like tells him this story of like, you've always been in love with Layla, like ever since we were kids, and you know, wanted to ask her to dance and you never did, and all of this stuff. And, I thought you were over your crush and all of that. And then that's like what finally cements Jordan picking Asher as his best man, is because like Asher tells him this story that like, oh, you and Layla will figure out all of what comes up after the wedding. Um, so what did you think about that?
Um, I wish we got a little bit more references to their childhood up until this point, if they were going this route.
Thank you. Because you're
Um,
real. Because we're a
yeah,
smart family and we don't take these
'cause
last minute.
it's like they never actually gave us any reasoning to that. Yeah, it can make sense how they did it. Like how they did it makes sense. Yes, we known each other since we were all 5 years old. Blah blah blah. But y'all didn't give us any hints or anything. Because right as soon as like Spencer got there, Spencer ended up getting Layla, and she was still dating Asher at the time. We never got any hints with Jordan towards anything with Layla until they did it.
Well, I mean, I think if you like look back, I think there were small hints, but there weren't. I think like the hints that we've gotten.
It was not. I don't think it was too significant. Like the hints they did.
Yeah. No. It was definitely under the surface. Like you definitely had to be paying attention. I'd say we started to get like true apparent hints. What was it? Season 2?
Yeah, like that
Like
first
with
season though, you
Cotillion.
didn't get any hints that any like they were just.
I'm telling you, go back and watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's how
On Jordan's end.
I mean, that's just like how I seen. I didn't like that.
No, I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you.
I didn't see like anything to.
I'm saying when you go back and watch, you'll see it in retrospect. No, because I was with you too. I was just like, I didn't think that we got hints. I know some people saw it. I didn't see it when I first watched it.
I get like childhood friends, like all three of them were like him, Layla, and Olivia was all really close. Twins, and then
Yeah.
because she even threw them a birthday party, even though they were
Right.
grounded, everything. So Layla's always loved the both of them. Very.
Well, like that was.
I know. That was more.
The birthday party was.
I know.
We're not gonna go into history. This is what I'll say. Listen, people will love you because they're just like you're bringing up all of the stuff that I like. No, let's not talk about that. But this is what I did not like about that big conversation that Jordan had with Asher is that number one, because I knew that they were going to do this storyline of Jordan picking his best man. They released the like synopsis breakdown a couple of weeks ago, and the question I kept asking was, when is the last time Jordan and Asher have had a meaningful conversation? Like the last meaningful conversation they had, and I don't even really count this because it like Layla was there and it was like specifically about Jamie, but it was like about Jamie and I forget what they were talking about, but it was when he was sick. But other than that, they haven't in the entirety of the series. I think we would have to go all the way back through to what like season 1, maybe season 2 to find like a significant conversation between the two of them. And so when I saw, first of all,
he was
when
always just battling it out because Asher did something or Jordan was going through something.
The last meaningful conversation is when Jordan, after Jordan had a concussion, and JJ and Asher came to like try to lift him up. But again, that was also with JJ as well. Like I can give it to him, but again, they haven't really had these like one-on-one conversations.
Yeah. I think other than like the last one-on-one is when Asher gave the playbook to the other team, and he's like,
that's what I'm saying. You have to go all the way back to season 1. Like, yeah. So the fact that like we randomly got these things, and I think it's just how it was set up because in the first part of the episode when Jordan's going to Spencer, and he does give this whole speech to Layla where he's just like, oh, Asher's been my best friend since we were kids or whatever, and Spencer's my brother and all of that stuff. But then he goes to Spencer and he's just like, you're one of my good friends. And I'm like, I already knew what time we were on when he said that. And I was like, I'm not taking this seriously at all. The fact that Jordan asking Asher for the first time, oh, how are things going? Oh, you're a great coach. Like the fact that he needs to be prompted, and the prompting is the fact that he needs a best man, was crazy to me.
Yeah.
And then, and the other thing is, I feel like I would have accepted this more. Obviously, this is a very long rant about this, but I would have accepted this more if, like you said, if we had gotten this a little bit sooner. I don't even think that we needed to get it outside of this season, but even if we had gotten it
just more little moments,
like 5 episodes ago, 4 episodes ago, even 2 episodes ago. Like, why are we cramming all of this into the episode where Jordan needs to make his decision? Regardless, Jordan asks Asher to be his best man after Asher gives him that pep talk of encouragement about how he's always been in love with uh Layla, or like had a crush on her, which by the way I very much buy. Like I
No,
could
no, I get
definitely
it.
see it.
Like, yeah, I get it. Somebody around that much all the time, like growing up, I definitely
Yeah,
get it.
yeah. And I think even before they were officially a thing, I go back, check the receipts, check the receipts. But I feel like I remember saying on this podcast something like I could imagine Jordan having had a crush on Layla, and this is before. This is like season 3, mid season 3 that I'm saying this. So it's like this all makes sense to me. So it's not the fact that like Asher said these things, but it's the fact that they just chose to cram this into this episode where Jordan needed a reason to pick him as his best man, because otherwise this choice doesn't make sense. But it all felt very forced to me, just the fact that he was like, we need a reason to make Asher the best man. And also Asher talking about some if you just look at it like from a character perspective, Asher saying like, oh, I thought you were over her is crazy.
It is. I thought it was over and started dating her for years.
Exactly. Well, I think what did they start dating freshmen? So they dated for about a year and cheated on her mid anyway. So be that as it may, that's the route that the writers chose to take with this one. Um, but switching over to Layla's end of it, she was just trying to get the seating chart done.
Mhm.
I'm laughing because this episode was just a little bit unserious to me. But you mentioned the fact that she planned the party. I don't buy that Layla, the planner, just didn't have the seating chart finished the day before her wedding. Do you know what I mean? The only thing that was realistic about this was the fact that they were practicing their first dance.
That makes sense, but the seating chart, everything should have been done weeks before the wedding, like at least a week before, not the day before.
Exactly.
'Cause you gotta know like what the food is, everything. Like people that like the wedding's gonna be a pretty decent sized wedding.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the promos.
Yeah,
There's
so
a good number of people there. And it's also at a fancy place. So I'm like, this is not happening in I don't even want to make this reference, but this is not even happening in like the baker's backyard. Like this is actually, I assume that they would have wanted the seating chart already far in advance. Like at least again, at least last week. Like I don't know why we're doing all of this the day before the wedding, which also happens to be the day of the draft. Um, but be that as it may, they're practicing the first dance, which by the way, I love that scene. I love that scene. It was a really cute scene. Jordan making the reference to like the TikTok dance.
mhm.
And then the making a reference to like the first dance has to be PG, not
Not
PG
PG-13.
13 or Magic Magic Mike. But it's just like it was yeah, it was I think just a really cute scene, and I think it like speaks to their dynamic very, very well. So I love that scene. If I could take out that scene and the Laylivia scenes in this episode, it would be an A plus, and then everything else would just sit on the side. Everything else would sit on the side. But again, that's where she sort of tells him that like Liv told her right that she's gonna be the maid of honor, and she didn't want to say no to Liv. And then later we get her talking to Liv, and she's checking in around Liv's book, which we had heard that basically she was ready to launch this thing, and she set up a signing for herself because she told her mom and Jordan. And so this is the first time we get her and Layla talking about it. And this is the moment that Layla, I love them so bad. This is the moment that Layla calls Liv sister for the first time.
Yep.
I screamed every single time I watch the scene. I scream again. Like it's this is for me. They wrote that specifically for me. I've been fighting for their friendship for years. For however long this show has been on, that's how long I've been fighting for this friendship. So to see them officially call each other sisters and see Liv really excited to hear it, to like hear Layla say, "Okay, now say it back to me." It was just great. It was just great. It was great. Also, side note, this would work so well if you were one of my other friends, but the fact that they had bundles, I'm like,
Yeah, I'm not
it's getting real
about
black up
that.
in here. It's getting real black up in
I got a lot of hair in my head, but I
here. What?
don't want no bundle.
I was like, what? Where did these bundles come from? And the story about Liv's mom needing to ask Layla's mom how to do Liv's hair, or else she was gonna shave it off. I was like, not Laura trying to shave off Liv's hair. That's crazy. But yeah, it was a really cute scene, and like Layla reaffirmed that she's gonna show up to Liv's book signing, which when we get to the book signing, nobody showed up to Liv's book
Yeah,
signing besides Layla and her family and Spencer. I think Asher popped in, but he was like late, right?
yep. And he was like, "Is it over?"
Exactly. Is it over? And then like Coop only came because she was like looking for Spencer, right? Or was she there already?
I think she was there for like Spencer because they had the because Coop told Eric, the manager, that he's going to be there for Liv regardless.
Right, right,
So
right.
she was coming,
So it's I think, or maybe they were there at the same time because
yeah, about the
Spencer
same
was there
time.
pretty
So
early
we see
too.
each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Fine, yeah.
Exactly. But basically the book signing was dead. The other thing is like how did she had just decided a month ago to change this into a kids book. And so listen, I think it's perfectly plausible for her to have published this book, but I don't think it's as plausible for her to have several stacks of this book ready to go.
And
It's already bound, it's already the cover is done, the whole like art for and illustrations for the book is done. The fact that she had to change this from a adult biography to a children's book, and I'm like, you did all of that in less than a month? What?
yeah, really, yeah. It's not, yeah, that's not realistic unless you got a crazy amount of money. I mean, which they're pretty well off, but it's
Yeah, yeah.
still,
So it just feels like I don't know. Just it, it and again, I think that they were trying to give the writers a little bit of grace because I have been going in on them this episode, but to give them a little bit of grace. I feel like they were trying to speed things up to wrap things up because at the time they weren't sure if they were going to get another season. We're still not sure if these characters are continuing, so they were trying to wrap things up, but again, it's just the way in which they did some the choices they made. I don't know. It just not everything was clicking for me. Not everything was clicking for me.
hmm.
Um but what did you think about Liv being, done with this book, but the fact that like nobody showed up to this thing?
Well, I feel like it makes sense because if you're just changing how everything is in a month, you're not going to have too much publicity on that thing in that month, and just expecting a whole bunch of people to show up. It's kind of obvious that's going to happen.
Well, Layla didn't seem to think that way.
Yeah,
Remember, she was just like, I could have done a better job than whoever your little friend is.
nah, you should. But Layla has a name to herself, and
That's true.
if Layla would have promoted it, because Layla has her own business, her dad's famous. Well, she has more of a name to herself than Liv. Liv has a name because she's done multiple things, but that many people.
Well, and her mom used to be the DA, but
Yeah,
I think that's like too is like she used to be the DA. And
yeah. So it's like
I don't know. It just yeah.
the publicity just wasn't there. If Layla probably promoted it or Spencer promoted it early hand, because Spencer's name is in the draft's coming up. Spencer's promoting something and it's in the same city as where the draft is. That's gonna bring some names if somebody's promoting it like that and they're out there. But it just probably
Yeah.
wasn't.
And I guess she just told them that she wanted to do it on her own because I think that they were pretty surprised.
Yeah, so if it had more advertisement out there, it probably would have been a lot better. But
Well, and exactly like you said, his agent, and we'll get into why his agent does this, but his agent ends up setting up a
yeah,
de facto interview and brings all of these reporters. And it ends up becoming, I think people thought that Spencer wrote the book after the fact because his agent had like
just showed up
basically
and
bum rushed Spencer with this and ambush Spencer with this impromptu interview about his old coach. So it was interesting, and Spencer was really upset about that, and he told the agent that, and Liv understands what was the case. She wasn't mad at Spencer, obviously. Why would she be? But and I think that she also, I feel like I have to rewatch it a little bit, but in a weird way, I think that she was just like, at least the picture and the name of the book are getting out there somehow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, with the draft right there, like Spencer's the top prospect, your name is going to be out there.
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna be attached. It's such a storyline for the NFL. Like, it's gonna be attached. And so I don't think, let me say this, I don't think Liv minded as much as Spencer did, for sure.
Yeah.
But with that being said, she ends up connecting with Kia, who we got for like a scene. and Kia like helps Liv with arranging a kids reading at South Crenshaw through Sola Muse, the organization that they both used to be a part of. And she has this like little reading with kids, and like they're sitting down, and the kid asked the question, and the kid was just like, is Coach Billy a genie? And then Liv says, yes, but he lives in a tracksuit instead of a bottle.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Kids. I thought it was a cute little movie.
It was really cute. I think that this storyline actually had a couple of like funny one-liners that they did with it, because Layla being like, oh, I could have done a better job than this, right? Like, this other girl ain't gotten it. But and then the tracksuit thing. And I also think that like what Spencer made a comment, and because they were just like, maybe I should have put the affair in the book, and it was just like,
and it would definitely get people like drama.
Yeah, it would have been crazy for a kid's book. So out of all of the storylines, Liv's book was my probably my favorite of the entire episode, just because it felt the most natural. I think the most unnatural part of it, or inorganic part of it, was the fact that she had published it so soon after she decided to turn it into a kid's book, and she already had it like ready to go, and 200, 300 copies already ready to be sold. But with that being said, Liv's boyfriend Spencer. Tell me why this man was buying up gifts for everybody, getting Liv was it a necklace or a bracelet?
I think it was a necklace.
It was either a necklace or a bracelet, but I think it was like a diamond necklace or a bracelet. He got
his mom a car.
He got his mom a car. He got Dylan. Well, Dylan, it was like borrowed drip, right? Because it was like they just wanted him to wear it for free.
Yeah. Like that happens.
Yeah. But the buying a car is a crazy, crazy investment. And at the top, he and Liv have this conversation that St. Louis is the only team that's in the top 5 who needs a receiver. And so they're like certain that he's going to St. Louis. They start talking about, oh, we got to go visit the Arch and all of this, and you're going to live in St. Louis. And, they spend an extra couple of moments together, because they're just like, oh, between the draft and then Jordan and Layla's wedding and the book release, we just spend a few more minutes chilling before the craziness. And it was a lot of craziness, because you get him again giving Liv this huge gift. Then we get like Grace getting a makeover done, or like setting up her makeup for the night, which was also crazy, because I'm like, Grace, this looks like a regular makeup. Like, what are we doing? This looked normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
To me, but we also got that joke. Did you hear when Dylan said, like, Layla can't resist all this drip?
Yep. And then his mom was like, or it like turns into a puddle, drips into a
right. But also, like, why is this the second time we've gotten this Dylan crush on Layla thing? Because he had a crush on Liv. Like, when did this evolve into Layla? I still want to know when this happened.
I mean, I guess because that's his brother's girl. You gotta switch now.
Oh, that's true. You're right. You know what? See, this is why I need to have the male perspective on my podcast more. But anyway, so he says that, which is crazy in and of itself because their wedding is the next day. But like we said, buys all of this stuff. His agent eventually comes to him and he's like, listen, nothing is for certain until the deal is done, until the contracts are signed. And Spencer sort of like brushes him off.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, listen, I've done everything, so I'm going to enjoy it. Like, I've done everything that you've asked me to do. And his agent is really like, no, seriously, please don't count your eggs before they hatch. Please don't do that. And he's just like, listen, I don't know why everybody's concerned. Like, he saved up NIL money, which, you know, he had NIL deals. And I assume that he had some because he was able to like,
if you a
afford a
top
beach house and he has a car.
if you
Yeah, exactly. He's a top prospect, all of that. He was a Heisman contender at one point.
You definitely have some
so
that's for sure.
He definitely has some funds. And he said that and he said that he used that out of his savings to make these purchases because he assumed that the money would be back in his account after the draft. And so he does that. His agent reminds him to still be present. And this is where we get the whole thing that he's not going to skip Liv's event or miss out on Liv's event. And I think it was, what specific event was he missing? I think it was like an interview specifically, right?
Yeah, I believe it was some interview and
yeah, it was another interview and he was just like, I've already, interviewed with them. I'm not missing my girlfriend's event. And so his agent is just like, this is not a good idea, which is again why he
I think it's
arranged that
like luncheon something. Anything?
Yeah, it was like a luncheon, like an owner's luncheon or something like that. But he arranges this interview in place because he's just like, it makes more sense for you to skip out on this luncheon or interview or whatever if it's, oh, I'm supporting my girlfriend and my girlfriend's dad who used to be my coach in this book launch that I'm a part of. And so he wanted to create a storyline because we know the NFL loves storylines as to why Spencer would be missing from this one event. And then his agent talks to Coop, who had randomly been suggesting, like, oh, when I'm your manager. And I was like, where's this coming from? It didn't make sense to me. Did it make sense to you?
Nah, not too much.
It just felt random and forced. I just sigh with so many of the decisions in this episode. But he talks to Coop and is basically like, I think he doesn't say this directly to Coop, but he's just like, please get through to him because I can't at this moment. And Coop is just like, listen, I'll make sure that he's attending these other events, but he's not going to miss this event for Liv. And so when his agent does the thing and it blows up, Coop goes to talk to Spencer and he's just like, listen, this guy, Eric, is your Jerry Maguire. Help him help you. And Spencer gets upset at Coop and he's just like, listen, you're not even my manager.
Right.
And she's like, well, yo, we're all just trying to help you, again, get chosen, get picked, go first round. And so Eric apologizes to Spencer after Spencer gets upset and is just like, he like creates boundaries. And the next time we see them is when they're actually at the draft. And Spencer is on the red carpet and Grace is talking about, so everybody's here to see my baby. Like, I need you to be for real. But Spencer has this interview on the carpet and he's like basically thanking his family. So he thanks his mom, he thanks Dylan, he thanks Coop, he thanks Eric, he thanks Olivia, gives Olivia a shout out. And the whole rest of the group, Jamie, Asher, Laura, Layla, and Jordan, who are watching on the screen.
TV.
Yeah. And then it was weird because it was like
Olivia was late too. So,
Jamie and Asher started watching at the house, like at Willie's house, but then they suddenly went to the baker's house and I'm like, why weren't they there from the beginning? I don't know. It didn't make any sense to me, but they're watching and they're all just like expressing their excitement that Spencer is about to be drafted. And then Laura makes this comment where she's just like, she's a wreck because she's just like, I'm so nervous. I was nervous for Billy's. I don't know if I could I don't know if I could make it through another draft, which I was like, is this a hint towards Jordan's future? Because she's saying that she can't make it through another draft. And then she tells Layla and Jordan, like, oh, I promise I'll hold it together for your wedding, which was also crazy, because literally she had never said anything about their wedding up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
There were just so many random things happening and going on. Also, let me take this point because I forgot to mention this earlier. Layla and Jordan end up talking about the fact that they supposedly hadn't talked about having kids or where they were going to live. And then Layla assures Jordan, she's just like, well, I want kids, but not right now. And they decide, like, oh, maybe we're going to get a pet. Like, maybe we'll get a dog. Billy Barker.
Yeah.
And then she's just like, yeah, you're there goes your naming rights for our kids. Your naming privileges. But they decide, like, maybe we'll get a dog. And then they talk about where they'll actually be living after the wedding. And Layla talks about how she's actually been looking at places already, and she's found a couple that he thinks that she'll like. So they resolve that storyline for the two of them of like, oh, what's going to happen the day after the wedding or what comes next. So they talk about that. Again, according to the writers, for the first time, even though they've already mentioned kids this season, they've already talked about the living stuff this season. Back to the draft. And Laura saying, I'm going to hold it together for your wedding. The draft gets underway and Liv comes just in time. Spencer is just like, how did the, book reading go? And she's like, great. And now we're like focused. We're all focused on you. We're all focused for Spencer's big moment. And you just feel like something bad is going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the whole tone and mood shifted in a whole different direction.
It shifted when the guy came who was supposed to be, what was it, the general manager?
Yeah.
For the St. Louis?
Yeah.
What was it?
Even that part not really realistic either, because the general manager for a team is not going to...
Is not going to be walking across. He's going to be in the war room. He's going to be in the war room.
Yeah, he's not. That's why they call in all the picks. That's what for the draft stuff. It wasn't like very real.
I love how you're like, that part is unrealistic. So much.
No, so it was. It just wasn't realistic. That's what
it was not a realistic episode, and I think, especially with the football stuff which we're getting into, but the fact that all right, well, we'll just say it. So the draft gets underway. He does not go top 5. He does not go top 5. And everybody is confused. Here's the thing. The first receiver who goes off the board, who's the receiver that St. Louis ends up picking, is a guy that I actually looked at his stats, and it was like 98 receptions for like
it's a 900 yards. So that's a good year for college football, but
I'm not. No. It's so bad.
That's for college football. It's decent. Like that's not decent. It's
okay for college football. It's decent, but is it top 5 pick?
No, that's like late first round pick worthy. Because either
that's what I'm saying.
They about real life. Marvin Harrison, Malik, they both top 5 this year. They both had like 1,200 yards receiving.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You have to reach over 1,000.
Like really dynamic, for sure. Or you have to be like really dynamic. You got to do like receiving, and you got to be running the ball a little bit, like Spencer did. Like he's doing it all.
Yeah,
have that little bit of like.
And we had already heard that. Well, like the agent said, like you can't be friends because he had introduced. He introduced like Cooper Jordan, one of the two, to him, and he was just like, yeah, you can't be all buddy with the receiver. That's the competition. But also we already got the understanding that Spencer was a better receiver than him.
Even the announcers were saying
this show has set up the fact that they have established that Spencer is like one of the best players on the field and like the best players ever. And I think honestly, with the way that this ends up going, I'm gonna talk about it, but I just think that the writers wrote themselves into a corner. And they built up Spencer to be the best receiver so much that the way, like, obviously he doesn't end up getting drafted day 1, that it doesn't make sense for him not to be drafted day 1 because you all built him up so much.
Nah,
if it was realistic.
that's the unrealistic part too that I was getting into, because like for the NFL draft, they usually don't invite you to actually be there if you're more than likely not going to be taken in that first round. It happens time
That's what I'm
like it
saying.
happens time to time. Like recently, like Will Levis was projected a first round
Right.
pick.
And he's a
Yeah,
quarterback though.
but if you're usually projected top 10, like going into the draft, you're usually at least not making it past top 15. Like, and they wouldn't even allow you to. They wouldn't invite you to be at the actual NFL draft. They
Exactly.
wouldn't invite
Exactly. So, and then they have that conversation where, and this is, I'll say, this is the one piece of the storyline of this episode that I actually really did love, is that when Jordan and Asher were giving commentary, and then they started talking about like, oh, this guy doesn't even have like the
you.
stats
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Spencer
that's what I'm
has, and
saying.
then
Yeah,
and then they were talking about the different teams. They were like, well, XYZ team actually still needs a receiver, so he's definitely going to go to top 10. So I
yeah,
appreciated their
that's like a realistic
commentary.
type of thing. Yeah, that
That was so realistic for football players.
because they're like, yeah, we need this, we need that. Like,
That was the most real. I'd say that was literally the most and probably only realistic piece of this draft storyline.
yeah,
Because the other thing is, Spencer wouldn't be going in blind and like waiting for the
because most
announcement
of
and
the time
saying
the
like, "Oh, I'm gonna
agent,
go." He would have
because
gotten a call.
nah, because like when you submit your, especially for like Spencer came out early,
Right.
like they send you back a draft grade. Like the NFL sends you back a draft grade saying they don't tell you what round, but they'll say like except for the first round. That's the only round that say yeah you got a first round draft grade back from the NFL. That's when they know like yeah I'm more than likely I'm going in the first. Especially like sometimes they'll even send you top 10 like projected top 10 or something like that. Those lines.
Right.
Like for Spencer, if he was projected to go 3, the only way he's falling out that far from the first round, and mind you, he wouldn't even have been there. Something like this happened, like what happened with Laremy Tunsil, like the bong thing dropped right before the draft happened.
Right. Right.
He
Right.
fell all the way to 10 or
And I
11,
think
whatever the fuck.
that's what they're sort of trying to do with this storyline, but they didn't let the audience
No,
know what
yeah.
it was. Right now, the
Even
only thing that
Spencer's
we
like, because
have
Laremy
is
didn't even show up when that happened because it happened the day of the draft before.
that's what I'm saying. But also, it's like the only thing that happened was Spencer skipping out on this meeting or the lunch or whatever the case may be. But then his agent literally said, "Okay, but I
Yeah,
turned it
turned it
around. Like
into
this
something good.
event is helping, or this exposure
Right.
is helping, or
Because
whatever
then
with
now
it."
they know why
So it's like
why
we as the audience don't even get a legitimate reason of, oh, this draft day thing blew up his opportunity. Now maybe they're gonna say this in the next episode, but the fact that like even his agent didn't have like was it Coop sent the agent away and he was told him don't come back until you have good news, and then he
yeah.
didn't come back. And it's like the fact that his agent isn't on like multiple calls like wondering what's going on or trying to make a deal, like this is not realistic at all. The fact that his agent has no clue why this is happening. Like what is
Yeah, most
happening?
of the time you'll know, like the agent will know why my player's falling. Like,
Exactly. And then he just wasn't telling Spencer, which doesn't make sense. And it felt like he could suspect things. And even Spencer was just like, maybe that's why he was so freaked out. And it's like, okay, if he was freaked out, why doesn't he know the actual reason that
yeah,
you're
because
dropping the draft?
like
Why it's
if
passing?
he was freaked out before the draft too, he should have let Spencer know, especially since
Don't
draft.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so especially since the draft is in my hometown and where I played college at, not even to go. Real,
that's
the
so true.
agent would have
You're
told
so
you don't
real
go
about that.
because then you'll be caught on national television. Like all the cameras are gonna be like, why is he falling this far? Like similar like what happened to Lamar Jackson. Lamar
Right,
falling
right,
to the
right, right.
32. Like they thought he probably might even fall out the first round if the Ravens didn't trade back in.
Right,
Like
exactly. And the
stuff like
commentators
that.
were saying
Like
that. They were just like, he's running out of options, all this stuff. Which, speaking of, when they get to 32,
yeah, and they said they took Wade Waters. Wade Waters is 30.
right. Wade Rodgers, and it was just like, first of all, Wade, like,
Right, and Wade had all
you cannot.
issues and everything, even though he was already projected when he was like that first season there. He was
He had
projected
so many issues.
early,
I feel like it
but he had
literally
a
would have
lot of
been more
off the
realistic
field
if
issues.
he was like a day two. Yeah, I would say I would trust him as a day two pick. I would not trust this man going number 32 in the first round. The person who they should have done, and I still stand by this, is they should have called Darnell's name because they didn't even show Wade going up on
Yeah,
the stage. They still
they
kept
didn't show
Spencer.
Darnell either.
So
And Darnell was at the combine and everything.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like I don't know why they chose Wade, but that's neither here nor there. This whole storyline, like I said, I think listen, if there's a person who is a bigger Ravens football fan than me, it is my cousin Jared. If there's a person who's a bigger football fan than me, it is my cousin Jared. And so you already know all this. But I just do not think that the writers have set Spencer up well. Like, obviously, people are going to be upset because they've made Spencer out to be this, like, otherworldly generational talent. Otherworldly.
And then scoring a game-winning touchdown and all of that in a national title game, that's going to put notice on everybody. Everybody's looking at him for something like that.
Exactly.
Like, everybody will be looking at, like, because that's the national title game, everybody's looking at.
I also think that maintaining that, like, having other people in the series say, like, you're gonna be a top 5 pick, you're gonna be a top 3 pick,
unless something crazy happened, it's no reason he would have fell out the first round.
No reason.
And
no reason whatsoever.
If something crazy did happen, he shouldn't even have been at the draft.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even think that they should have set it up like this if this was ultimately what they were going to do. I think that they should have set it up that, like, oh, you're going to be a first round pick. We're hoping that you're going to be first round. Like, again, like, that's how they should have set it up. If they
was projected top 10 and then something happened.
Top 5. Do you know how this is what I mean is, like, first of all, top 5 is literally like quarterbacks and offensive lines. Like, that's it.
Like, something had to happen. Like, I mean, if something happened before the draft, more than likely it would have leaked on the internet. The internet's too big now, and you wouldn't even have been at the draft. Like, my agent would have not even come.
Yeah.
We
are all just collectively confusion about this storyline, and it's, again, I wouldn't have minded this because, like, real life Spencer Basinger, he went undrafted. I actually think that Spencer's going to get drafted day 2.
He'll get drafted.
He probably day 2. I think he's going to be a day 2 draft, like, right after the wedding.
Somebody will throw that pick at him.
Yeah. But, and we'll get to that in predictions. But I think that because if the writers knew that they were going to go this route, I do not think that they should have been consistently using this language this season that's like, you're going to be a top 5 pick, you're going to be a top 3, you're going to be top 10 for sure. Like, they literally should have just set up the goal, like, you going to go in the first round. Like, I just, like,
they should have said, yeah, you're a fringe first round pick. They should have did something like that.
Exactly. Thank you. Exactly. So, but again, they've, like, set up Spencer to not just be, like, a great or generational talent. They've set him up to be, like, this multi-generational talent in a lot of ways. So it's really frustrating. And I know a lot of fans are frustrated. That's like, oh, why does Spencer have to go through one more thing? I'm upset about that too, but I'm more so upset about, like, if you're gonna do this, why not try to make it as realistic as possible and, like, not write yourself into a corner where this absolutely makes no sense whatsoever.
It is.
So thanks for listening to my thoughts and to my cousin's thoughts. Stay tuned for our predictions.